I'm hoping that people can see everything is connected. All of our professions and how we do things is how people can get better. To know about this, to know if you think of something in your mind that you want to change, you can actually change it. If you don't want to pay taxes, you can figure out how to not legally pay taxes, which is most people don't want to pay them.
You're going to be the most popular person.
We can figure that out.
We need to lead with that.
Yeah, we can figure that out, and we can actually not pay them.
Perfect. Well, welcome everyone. We are so excited to have our first episode today on the Remember You podcast. Today is going to be a pretty laid back layout or format, if you will. And we're just going to go through a short introduction of where each of our hosts come from and kind of how our paths led us to each other and kind of what the goal of our podcast is. So kind of a general overview is really focusing on rediscovering and embracing one's true self beyond societal and educational conditioning. So what does that really mean? Essentially, each of our paths has led us on different spiritual journeys, metaphysical journeys, health journeys, nutritional journeys, to coming back to our core essence and living in a more authentic way. So who wants to start?
I'll kick it off here.
Let's do it.
So the origin story could come from many different ways, but I'll start with my background in athletics. I've always been an athlete growing up. Started with hockey, my dad coaching me, and then transitioning into football and going all in on that. And so strength training was always a foundation for me. It was always an outlet, and it was a way that I processed things. It's a way that I built self-confidence in myself. I was always the one going after practice on my own to go train. As a kid, 12 years old and older. And I always found success in athletics. And that was always something that just gave me confidence. And so my identity was wrapped around being an athlete. And it wasn't until I got into college that I got to what I call the championship, but I didn't become the champion in the process. So when you get to the next level in any field, you realize more and more it's more about mindset than anything else. So I went from being one of the most athletic and talented on the team in high school to then being one of many talented athletes in college. And that checked me. So I went from first string to bench really quick because of my attitude, not because of my physical talent. So I blamed it on the coaches. I blamed it on everybody else. And so I kept this cycle up going for years, for 2-3 years in my college career.
What do you mean the cycle?
So it was, I went into junior college, Harper College, because I wanted to I came from Elgin High School. We came from a poor program. We didn't get much notice. I tried out for U of I, ISU, Western. I wanted to go D1. That was my dream and my goal, right? And so I got good looks at the camps, did one-day camps over there, did all the combine stuff, got some good looks, but they needed to see more field play. And I was like, okay, junior college is the way to go. And Harper College was like number 1 in the nation. So I went there and they were recruiting all over the U.S. And Netflix has a really good show called Last Chance U.
Oh, okay.
And so I was amongst those types of personalities where we came from troubled backgrounds. We were dysfunctional. I came from a broken home, so to speak. My parents were great, but divorced and a lot of pain and things that came from that. And that's where strength training really kept me grounded because I had a lot of friends who went left when I went right, drugs and things of that nature. So that cycle at Harper, the first 2 years that I was there, I didn't really compete very well because of that, blaming the coaches and being a victim. And that was the first time I really checked myself in terms of my identity as an athlete. I remember just feeling broken and lost at that point. And so that's when I started I was working at a gym and I started kind of running the operations at the gym and then realizing, okay, what's the next step there? I interviewed some gym owners, and they were like, you need to get your personal certification license or your certification for personal training. So that was the first time I did like a self-study course diligently. Besides strength training and women, it was it was like certification, get that in. And I studied really hard for that. And so then I got a job as a personal trainer, worked my way through that for about a year and a half. And then I was going for my 4-year degree. So I went to North Central, applied to North Central. They had a good program there. I still had a year or two of eligibility. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go into this again. I'm better, stronger, more wise, more in tune. My identity, I didn't know at the time, wasn't directly tied to being an athlete. It was more holistic at that point, helping people. That was a big thing with personal training. And so I went in that program. Same thing happened. I was getting looks and love by the coaches. Things were going good during summer camp. Then it comes time, I get benched or I get checked. And I showed up as the same individual that I was at Harper, blaming the coaches, blaming everybody else, and sitting on the bench. And I had a couple good practices where they put me in position to start playing. And again, physically, I was all there. I was competing against these guys and physically out competing a lot of them. But mentally, I just wasn't there. And so it was through that process, getting benched and then blaming everybody else. The second time around, I go, this happened once at Harper. This is happening again, this time at North Central. There's a common denominator here, and it's not the coaches. It's me. And that's when I realized that I had to take full responsibility for my position and my results. And so the mindset thing really clicked in at that point, that I need to really work on this mindset. Something's off. So combine that with physical training, the mental side of training, started digging into Tim Ferriss a lot. I was still personal training through this whole process, on and off. And then started really after that year or that season, I just went all in on my career. Started working at Lifetime, going up the corporate ladder there, and just learning from my peers and my mentors through that process. And again, the mindset thing was just I was more aware and intentional about that beyond the technicals of strength training and nutrition and all that.
Were people in that world at that time talking about mindset training at all? Or were you kind of...
It was not really... No, it was not popular. It was not common talk or anything that we sat around and really embraced or really talked about. It was me on my own doing my own study. I was big into everything from The Secret to Carl Jung to Tim Ferriss was one of my, before even Lifetime, I was digging into, even before that, it was like the human guinea pig. I was all about that with experimentation. So personal training just fit very well because you're getting an immersion of different types of people and common traits and limitations, and you're figuring out patterns and what's going on. And a lot of it was stress. A lot of it was just how people were perceiving stress. And this was an outlet for them. It was therapy. It was all these things. And I was always into performance. I was always interested in not just doing something, but doing it with intention, doing it with an outcome, something that could actually show for the work that you're putting in. And so I had that to a degree at Lifetime, but then mentors moved on. As we all progressed in that, I started kind of losing my interest there because I kind of learned everything I needed to learn at that point in that position.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot. I gained a lot of information, which I still hold to this day. But I got into, because of Tim Ferriss, he had a podcast with Charles Poliquin, and he's a world-renowned strength coach. And I heard about him in college, but never really looked into his stuff. And this guy was what I would call an outlier. He was somebody who did things differently in a way that very few, it wasn't common knowledge. This wasn't a practice that I saw anywhere in the industry. And the way he trained, the way he did nutrition, approached mindset, spirituality, and just his whole philosophy. And he was producing gold medalists, Olympic medalists left and right, the most medaled Olympic strength coach of all time. And that got my attention. So he had a couple interviews with him, and I just fixated on it. I was doing in-home training after Lifetime and just taking this information in left and right all the time. So to not drive myself nuts, driving 3-4 hours a day, it was audiobooks and podcasts. And at that time I was writing stuff down as I was driving. So I had a guardian angel. Yeah, I know. I wasn't using voice notes at all, but that was my school. Yeah. And I took that information in. So there was such a big mindset component to all these performers. And Tim Ferriss was exploiting that very well. Tools of Titan, as you mentioned, right? But they had these interesting philosophies. So Charles Poliquin really influenced me, and that sent me down a rabbit hole of all the things that I practice now to this day. And the mindfulness aspect led me to work with Tim Grover, being mentored by him for 2.5 years, and then just realizing how we really control our reality through the perception and how we handle stress and how we embrace it. And we call it in my field of strength coaching, expression of strength. So if you can maintain your posture under pressure, if you can maintain your position and your poise, that's an expression of strength. And that really holds true in all areas of my life. As a father, as a coach, as a friend, as a brother, as a son, it carries into all aspects of our lives. And that through pain, you find purpose. And when you find that purpose, it makes sense and it's all worth it. So as long as you're willing to stick with it and continue to search and ruminate around it and figure out the patterns of why this keeps on happening to us over and over and over again, you start to find the solution and you're able to teach others, show others how you're able to do this.
But also breaking the cycle.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So that's my story.
All right. I can go next. I guess we'll go around in a circle. I'm Christina Olsen. I'm excited to be doing this. The whole purpose of why I am part of this is because I really want to bring community together, share my story, and help others move towards their personal goals. For me, my calling was when I was really young, actually. I went through a lot with my parents. They were great. They did stay together. But I was raised in a very young, both my parents were super young, and interesting childhood that I had. We can go into it more at some other point. So my big outlet was to show that I could achieve and check the box off and be the best student, the best daughter. And I learned how to really control my environment so that I could succeed as a person. At a young age, I would find relationships, specifically with men, just as a way to control like what I had going on. Instead of having a healthy relationship, I would latch on and have unhealthy attachment styles. And I didn't know that until far later in my life. And so a lot of time, because I had bad personal relationships, I would work really hard. And so I started working really hard in high school and college. High school, I graduated in 3 years because I didn't want to be there. I wanted to get out of my parents' house. And in college too, I decided to get it done as quick as I could possibly do it. I was done in 3 years, and I started working right away. So for me, I went through my life with this. I think we've all kind of heard there's these check boxes, right? Like you get through high school, you do college, you get married, you have kids, you buy a house somewhere in there. I was doing all of those things and checking all of the boxes. I'm not going to go into all of my terrible relationships. One day, well, I'm sure you'll hear about it. But for me, I focused more on work. And so when I got out of college, I got a really great job as a recruiter. I was doing really great. I was having a lot of fun. I was traveling. I actually helped the company that I started with sell their company to a really large temp agency. I was able to, partner with them and do all those things. And that's where I really started to learn like what business was and how you function in a business situation. From there, I moved on to, I wanted to do, instead of agency recruiting, I wanted to do more corporate recruiting. So I got a job at a chemical company and learned a lot. That's where I became a leader. I learned a lot about human resources, talent acquisition. I was running a multimillion-dollar talent acquisition team with that company. Eventually, that company got acquired by another very huge, large company that I think you all might know that sells soaps, and we go into the bathrooms and you can wash your hands with them. And the one thing that I can really remember is when we were all being told that we were being acquired, it was a huge acquisition. I was in charge of our headcount, and I had to do these dashboards and everything and report to our CEO and the C-suite and our chief human resources officer. And I went back to my desk and was like, well, screw it. Like, I don't care. Everybody else was freaking out. I'm like, I got to get this dashboard done.
Yeah.
So I got the dashboard done, and my the CHRO actually came down to me and she was like, I don't understand. Everybody else is freaking out and you come and you do your dashboard and get your work done. And I said to her, I go, you know what? I can't control this. And that was the first time. I was young. I was probably 26. And I said, I am here to do my job. You pay me for the energy that I put into my work. And that's what I'm here to do. I can't worry about this. And she was like, wow, really, impressed at the time. I had no idea what I had just done, but I knew internally through my own intuition that you can't control things by worrying about them. And so it brought me to more of like, I'd always been a risk taker, but it helped me understand that like you have to take risks and do things to better your life. And so from there, I ended up being a mom. I got married. I had 2 kids. I ended up leaving corporate America for various reasons, and I thought I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. But that was not my calling. So I started up a company, which eventually turned into my heart and soul, Blockforce, which I ended up selling in 2022. And from there, I went on this path of who am I again? Because before, I just went through a lot of different things, but before my company really started to flourish, I found hypnotherapy, which helped me get my limiting beliefs that I had from society, from education, from my parents, from my teachers, from coworkers, from mentors. It helped me, really realize who I am and who I could be. And so I took that, and unfortunately, as I was building my business, it helped me, but I forgot that, how you kind of ebb and flow through life, you forget like what your teachings are, that you can't control everything. And so when I sold the company, I decided to go back and spend some time for myself. I was really lucky. I was in a great situation, and I thought, the first thing that I need to do is be there for my kids and my family, because I had not been there. I let my health, I had gained a lot of weight. I really didn't do much with my kids. They were like latchkey kids, I guess you could say. I don't know if that's an old term or what, but
they were doing their own thing.
They were doing their own thing, and I had no idea what was going on. And my little one was just still young, so I had this ability to rejuvenate the relationship. And what I decided to do was really lead with my heart this time instead of my brain and control and all of this stuff. And so I started meditating. I was doing yoga all the time. In between this, I had a full hip replacement surgery. So I had like all these.
You literally drove yourself into the ground.
Yeah, I did. And so I had this year off of like, how do I reconnect with my kids? And how do I reconnect with my spouse? And how do I have a home? And it was really, really uncomfortable because all I knew how to do was work and control people around me to like control the narrative. And I had to decompress and realize that it's okay to be bored, that it's okay to take care of yourself, and it's okay to do things that you love, and it's okay to sit in some quiet. The life is very loud, and you have to find that inner quiet. And so for me, I decided to go get my hypnotherapy certification so that I could help people like I was helped, and pass that on within my community, bring people together and help people realize that each one of us has a unique offering that we can bring the world in a way that is different than your neighbor or your brother or your sister or whatever it is, or your husband or your spouse or partner. We each have something to give to society, and if we can find that, then we will together in unity help each other rise. And that's the big reason why I'm here.
Yeah, that's nice.
Nice.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
That's such a good high level. I have so many questions we'll have to do a whole podcast on relationships, because I feel like it's so relevant to
It is.
our own unique experiences. But that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, Michelle.
Okay. Well, I'm Michelle Gonzalez-Tyler. I guess we'll start when I was young. I just thought being a lawyer or a model was the way to make money. So I just focused. I tried the model thing. It didn't work out. So then I focused on being a lawyer. And I did whatever I thought came up was good in going in that direction. So I did all that. And then I think I noticed that I needed help with my mindset. So I got some recording from Centerpoint. It was it's probably like hypnosis, but it's a recording you can get, and it's subliminal in terms of giving you affirmations or thoughts that you can do things. And so I was able to go to law school, and I had the focus of I wanted to be a trial attorney. And so when I got out, even though I did estate planning in law school, I did the clinic, I got out and I wasn't getting work for estate planning. And I met a man that did criminal defense, and he was like amazing at doing trials. And so we worked together. And so I was doing a lot of trials. First trial was a murder trial, and it was a not guilty. We started getting a lot of clients. It was all felonies, serious felonies, defending people accused or charged with criminal sexual assault, possession of narcotics. So we were getting not guilties for them, right? And so I did this for 17 years. Wow. So, and I always thought I would never attain. And I was seeing older attorneys getting tired of the practice. And I didn't understand. I thought, this is fun. Why wouldn't you want to do it? And then my partner, he got sick. He was sick, and he passed away. So I saw him get worse in his condition because he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he was getting blood transfusions, and he was like brand new every time. But then he got worse. Like 5 years ago, it just started getting worse. And so I saw just the stress of what we did, how it affects our bodies. And it wasn't just good enough that you can go do a trial and get a not guilty, but were you taking care of yourself? Were you eating right? Were you not drinking alcohol? We were doing those things, and he wasn't helping his condition, and I wasn't helping myself. And so in seeing what happened to him and then thinking how I help people, I was like, I don't want to help people the way I do. I'd rather help them a different way. And I also saw in my getting married and people passing, and my husband's family and, my partner passing, I thought, how do I want to help people? And I thought estate planning, because a lot of people, even myself, I didn't know how to run a business. I knew how to be an attorney. I knew how to go to court. I knew how to do a trial, right? But I didn't know how to grow the business, how to invest, how to set aside money for taxes. So at the end of the year, I would owe.
We could do a whole podcast on that one.
We can and we will.
Yeah, so there's all these things you don't know, and no one's telling you. And then it's like, wait a minute, I could have not paid that much in taxes if I really thought about it or invested or strategized, like you hear Trump or Kiyosaki talking about, and you don't get it because most people are like, don't invest in property, you're going to not do well. Yeah. But that's one of the ways, and people need to start opening up their mind to the ability to invest and not feel like you're not going to do well at it. and you're going to lose all that money because you're going to lose it anyways in paying taxes anyway.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so that whole thing happened. And then in transitioning, thinking I have to transition to estate planning, I had to think about, okay, now I need to start networking, right? And I need to start telling people about what I do, and then getting clients. And then I realized what I'm trying to do and actually grow a business, I can't do it being the same person I am and what I know. I need to learn. So I had to start hiring people. I had to hire an enrolled agent that can strategize about taxes, not just think a CPA is going to help me because he never did in 17 years, right? He just told me, you want to pay taxes twice? And I didn't understand that. I thought, why would I want to pay taxes twice, right? But that was not the way to explain it to someone that's building a business or having a business. And so I realized that. So I did go and seek and make it purposeful that I wanted to learn things and better myself. Like for years, I was trying to figure out my body and how to lose weight and how to feel good. I was getting tired in the afternoon. So then that's how I met Justin through the networking group. That just the energy, I think, of feeling I need to do these things. And it was for years. Somehow when I got ready or I did the transition, I started meeting the people that could help me. I started finding the people that could help me. And so I've been for like 6 months now working with Justin and seeing the changes in my body and the changes that I have to make in my mindset about things and how I look at them. And he said it before, but I think I get it now because how we're looking at things, if you don't change how you're looking at them, if you're looking at the same way and you're judging the same way, it's hard to make the change.
And it's the same things you see. You're looking for it, so you keep finding and seeing the same things.
And so how do you change and how do you accept people and situations and not judge them and not judge yourself and say, I can grow from this. I can learn from this. I can be better. And if the person around me is not doing the same, I don't have to worry about that.
Yes.
I have to focus and do what's best for me. And then you see them change. And so that's mind-blowing. But to be able to focus on that when you're so used to blaming and thinking negative is a hard thing. So in all of this, I guess, in my transitioning, I'm hoping that people can see everything is connected. All of our professions and how we do things is how people can get better. To know about this, to know if you think of something in your mind that you want to change, you can actually change it. If you don't want to pay taxes, you can figure out how to not legally pay taxes, which is most people don't want to pay them.
You're going to be the most popular person.
Yeah.
We can figure that out.
We need to lead with that.
Yeah, we can figure that out, and we can actually not pay them. And you can find the people that are going to help you figure that out. And it almost felt like Trump and Kiyosaki they were talking in code, and we had to figure it out over 20 years. Come on. It's like, why did it have to take me that long to realize this is how to do it? And I just have to open myself up to, I can do it. And why hypnosis and all this stuff kind of is I don't know if it's a shortcut, because I do subliminals and affirmations, and I don't know if the shortcut is hypnosis.
Well, you have to think about the way. So when you come out of the birth canal, you're a perfect phone. You're beautiful. You're brand new. Yeah. And then you start to get downloaded different apps on your phone, and that's your subconscious getting downloaded. What your parents tell you, how you're learning, how you're seeing the world as you're growing up. And as you grow up, you're downloading apps that make sense to you to maybe protect you or to help you grow or whatever it is. And what happens when you have so many apps on your phone? It starts to go slow. You're bogged down. You start repeating the same thing. Sometimes you can't even close out.
Battery doesn't charge.
Sometimes you can't even close out of certain apps. Yeah. So what we're here to help everybody with is delete those old apps and get to the new shiny programming that you were born with that will allow you to better your life and see past what we've been taught. in school, by our parents, by society, and these ideas that are simply ideas that we are calling law or whatever it might be. We need to think about this as Play-Doh, and we can merge it into whatever we want to be perfect for us.
I love that.
Well put.
Yeah. So I guess I want to not feel lack in my life, and I hope other people can stop feeling lack and then find the methods, like through nutrition, through what your mindset is, to get to wherever we want to go, like all of us, and be happy to get there and not be afraid that we can't get there or judgmental of others and how they are being.
I think a commonality between all of us before we get to you is we tried things inside the box. We tried to do things the way the structured system tells us how to do it, navigates us, and we've always been outliers and ways to, like, we'll play the game, but then you're seeing how everybody acts and how everybody is moving, and it's like, but they don't have everything that I want. Mm-hmm. So they may have the financial success, but they don't have the relational success, or they may have the spirituality or the open-heartedness, but they don't have the financial success or the other accolades that I would consider add joy to my life. Mm. And those things we can pick apart from multiple systems and mentors and leaders and be able to go, okay, how can I make this more efficient or digestible, as like what you were talking about with Kiyosaki and Trump, like this information to not pay taxes legally is out there.
Yeah.
Just as everything else that we talk about, from metabolic optimization and all this stuff, nutrition, to how to break free and be able to tap into your subconscious. There's multiple ways to do this, but we're looking for the most efficient, most potent and effective way.
And I think a lot of people get stuck in one modality, which is why it's really cool that we've all come together, because we can give our listeners different modalities to try that they can integrate within their life. So say spiritually, okay, yeah, I might have that, but from a financial perspective, I know, honestly, you guys, I ran a huge company, right? Yeah. I had no idea what you could do with irrevocable trusts. And I can't wait for Michelle to start talking about what you can do with that will actually open up your ability to own nothing and control everything. Mm-hmm. So there's just so much cool stuff. And like, Justin, what you're going to be able to tell us about why I crave a cookie at 3:00 in the afternoon every freaking day. I can't wait, right? But I think let's hear from you, Christina.
Yes. Oh, well, I've just loved hearing each person's story, because it's so like I have a relatively similar story kind of from each perspective, but just in a different way. I guess what led me here today is I'm a breathwork facilitator and also hypnotherapist. But what led me to get here actually started all the way back when I was 13, and I randomly out of nowhere had a physical panic attack. And I was a super happy-go-lucky kid, like running in the field with like 20 friends behind me, like always having a fun time. And then out of nowhere, this physical panic attack hits me, and I run into my parents' room and I'm like, I'm having a heart attack. You know, what's happening? I can't breathe. And this is like, I was only 13. I think you said your son's like 14. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, no idea what's happening. And then my parents recognizing like, oh, like you're having, this is anxiety. And so that is, in that moment is kind of when my spiritual, mental health, mental performance, like all these different journeys really began without me kind of knowing it. And I began to channel that intense anxiety that really showed up physically for me into high performance. And so I was immediately very, very young, straight A student, captain of the soccer team. I was on a traveling tournament soccer team, like going all over the US, and I, president of a volunteer club. It was just very similar to your story as well. As like, as long as I'm perfect, I won't, people won't see what I'm dealing with on the inside. I also come from a family that, in a lot of regard looks very normal on the outside, but behind closed doors, there were things I was dealing with that as a very young person that most people hadn't dealt with, their entire life. So exposure to, different drugs, different things, just a lot of dysfunction. But again, as long as I'm keeping that appearance of like, I'm perfect and I'm good, then like nothing can break me. And honestly, that anxiety served me for a really long time. I did have a lot of success. I was, really great with school. I was great in my sports. I had a lot of really great friends and relationships. And then when I went away to school, when my goal was literally just surviving, is like do really well in all these things so I can go as far away as possible, which God knows why led me to Alabama. But I went to Auburn for my undergrad. And then it was like my second year. It was really challenging academically. And then I wasn't playing sports anymore. And so then I finally had to face this terrible my anxiety monster, if you will, because I didn't have those tools and those outlets, like you were saying, like with the sports and strength training. And I kind of that was the beginning. I had my first spiritual awakening, and I was so overwhelmed. Actually, and my anxiety was so out of control, I had gotten academically suspended. And for any other perfectionists in the room, what an absolute, like looking back, I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. It's like common kind of at Auburn, but it was like, I thought I was going to die. It was like, this is literally the end of me. And really it was the beginning. And it was the absolute biggest blessing that ever happened, because I had to stop and I had to like sit with myself, and I had to like figure out what the hell was going on. And from that point on, so around like, I guess my sophomore year of college to probably, I guess like the next 10 years really, I experimented. I was very big Tim Ferriss fan, all about being a guinea pig. And I went first the very traditional therapy medication route, hit the wall a ton of times. I just felt like the medication for anxiety, depression, for my personal experience, it helped for like a very small amount of time, but it wasn't helping me have any like massive breakthroughs. And so then that led me onto a more spiritual, holistic, alternative medicine route. And then ultimately, over the last 10 years, I mean, when I say I've tried everything, I have meditated, I have hot yoga, I have done microdosing with psilocybin, I have, done primal screaming. I've literally done like all the things, but the two modalities that created the quickest and most impactful shifts were breath work and hypnotherapy. And so my professional career over the last 10 years, I also was an entrepreneur. I had a small marketing agency for just under 5 years. And then where I had thought I'd already like mastered the anxiety, and then you want to learn more about yourself, start a business. It's like its own personal development journey. But then I hit the wall, and I had also physical symptoms from the stress of running a business and all these different things showing up. And I was like, I already thought I hacked this. Like, why am I back here again? And then insert breathwork here. And I learned a modality called somatic breathwork, and it completely changed the game. And I decided I was so passionate about it. It made such a positive impact.
So for people who don't know what somatic breathwork is, tell us what
Sorry,
it is.
I'm probably also going really fast. It's classic. Yes. So somatic breathwork is really just a full system reset for your nervous system. So soma meaning the body. And a really great book to explain this is called The Body Keeps the Score, which I'm sure
very familiar with
all the things about that. And the concept behind it, it's relatively clinical. So
it's super clinical.
If you can,
don't pick it up. Just summarize
Google it. Literally
It's
ChatGPT it.
Basically keeps everything that has ever went wrong. If you don't feel the emotion emotion takes 90 seconds to move through your body. You have to feel it and really feel it, like anger, like jealousy, whatever it is. And once you can feel it and let it go through your whole body, then the body will let it go. When you do not feel it, which is most of us we've all been raised, you don't you cry because you're a man, you're a girl, you should always be smiling.
Yeah.
There's some, I don't remember if it was this book or another book I was reading, but the mom used to take the kid's mouth and nose every time he would cry and cover it until the kid was done crying, and it caused severe trauma in his body because he wasn't allowed to let go of those emotions. So the body keeps score is all about that, how you have to learn to let those emotions out and literally release them so that you can be healthy. And if you don't do that, that's what causes a lot of dis-ease, which is everything that causes cancer and different things that we struggle with and we see more and more in our society, especially Western society.
Totally.
Sorry.
No, please. It's way better as a conversation. Interject as you please. Yeah.
I heard something this morning about cancer, like 1 in 3 men and 2 in 3 women are going to get cancer. Yeah. So it's high.
Yes.
And need to make sense.
We need to release our emotions.
Yes.
A lot of anger behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of piggybacking off of what you're saying, the body keeps a score. And so during that, I think my 3rd year of being fully self-employed, I started to get sick. And it was because I wasn't managing my stress. I didn't know how, other than, extreme sports basically, or like, where it's like that works to an extent from the physical perspective. But like, if you're not tending to that emotional perspective, I began to drown internally. And I was having massive, success with my business. But again, my relationships are failing. My health is failing. Like everything else is crumbling. And everyone's like, oh, you're doing so great. I'm like, is this what success feels like? Because I don't want it.
Well, and you kind of touched on it, but what were like the distractors that you were using? Because that's what makes you sick, right? Is those distractors.
Totally. And I would just say I have always used work as a distraction. Yeah. And it's like, again, similar to you, is like, I want to see, one of my friends is writing a book called Outcome Junkie. And that is just like super relatable. Anyone to, in that high performer realm, it was just a mask. And so I quickly realized, I was like, okay, I don't see, my business was started from a place of purely like, I had financial goals that I wanted to hit. It was not heart-led, even though I got to work with a ton of really creative, awesome, amazing people. It wasn't like I'm starting this for impact. And so I quickly knew like there isn't longevity in this. So after that 3rd and 4th year, and I was getting so sick, meaning my symptoms were, again, my anxiety started coming back. I was gaining weight. And even though I was like eating perfect, doing all the things, and I also started having just like physical pain. Like it was like all these like chronic symptoms that I like couldn't fix. And so I slowly started offboarding my clients or sending them to other agencies. And then I decided, okay, like then if I don't have my health and my like mental well-being, like I'm only 28, like what am I doing? And I offboarded everything, downscaled the agency. And I was like, okay, I need to buy myself some time. And so then I went back into the corporate sector in the wellness space actually, and slowly just rebuilt my health brick by brick, and then found the breath work. And then it was so profound and so life-changing and opened my mind to just this whole other reality that I was like it was like following, you always use the term following breadcrumbs of like following. Do you want to explain what that is? Because I know you're going to say it all the time. It's so good.
Yeah. In my life, it has been, you don't think too much about what's going to happen next. But when those breadcrumbs come along, you always have a lot of different trails you can choose. You go with the breadcrumbs that are the biggest, that are calling your name, and you kind of pick it up and follow it. And I feel like life leaves you those breadcrumbs to follow and have a journey here on earth.
Yeah. And I just relate to you saying that so much, because up until that point where I had this second spiritual awakening, I was like, oh, this is going to keep happening, isn't it? And I realized that everything up until that point had been totally this like very masculine, like this is in my head, mental, intellectual journey. I had not dropped into my feminine energy. I had not dropped into my heart. I had not followed the breadcrumbs or intuition until this point. And then it started, the breath work was like this awakening because it dropped me into my calm, regulated nervous system. And then it was like the first time I feel like I really met myself. I was like, this is who you are without any of this anxiety or any of this, expectation, these installed beliefs or apps. Like I was able to just clear everything out and be like, oh, hi, this is you. And it's like, that's kind of why I love the name of this podcast. So it was like, that's exactly how I got into kind of this whole realm. But what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that's really beautiful. And it goes back to like the book we were talking about where the body keeps score. You were able to release those emotions that you had been hanging on to for so long through
and you don't even know you're doing it. And that is, I think, a part that was like so scary is that like I just didn't even know I was hanging on to anything because I was into all this spiritual and mental performance and mindset work like already on a pretty conscious level. But I just didn't know what my body was holding on to. So went through that experience, major awakening, knew it was time to start following the weird, like, it won't leave me alone. I got to follow that. And so got my certification to be breathwork practitioner. And really this modality is their breathwork journeys. So for anyone listening that doesn't know what breathwork is, there's literally so many different modalities. For the performance athletic folks, they're probably more familiar with like Wim Hof style, where you're doing like super intense holotropic breathing and like cold plunges and things like that, which is very aggressive and very intense. There's also 5-minute mindfulness practices you can do where you're doing circular breathing. But the modality that I got certified in is a 75. And I do breath work in a variety of formats, but this specific modality is like a 75-minute session. It's a journey. And so the first half is this really intensive, upregulated, you're getting all of those emotions out. So I have some people crying, screaming, like whatever it is, like intense, which I told you.
I've literally done one of these.
Yeah.
It was the first time in like the 6 months ago was my first time I've done that. And it was this. And you actually, I can't even explain what happens, but your body literally releases. And I cried. I was laughing at one point. And then when you're done, I don't know, I did a lot of drugs in my life, but you literally feel like you're high on like some kind of, I don't know.
Well, you're
like,
oxygenating your bloodstream.
it's insane.
Science
You
to it
really
as well.
feel high when you're done with it. And you're like, wow, this is the best drug I've ever done. And all I was doing was breathing.
Yes. Yes. And I love that. So amazing. But that also, it's so crazy. We're going to do a session together. It's going to happen. But the point is that then the second part of that session is you downregulate and you go into that more meditative state. And then the whole point is to give your nervous system a full reset. And so after I did that, I was like, okay, this is amazing. I got to start telling people, I got to start, taking sessions. And I actually started working with masterminds, like a ton of entrepreneurs, because the number one thing entrepreneurs struggle with is like, the endless amount of to-dos. I'm running your own business or juggling a million things, but you can only take on as much as your nervous system can like actually handle. And so I was just like, spreading the good news. I'm like, we have something, anyone can do this, all you need to do is breathe. And so super pumped, love it, very excited. But then I, again, was following this inkling, this like intuition or breadcrumbs or whatever. I was like, there's still something more. Cause I had friends being like, when are you launching the business? Like, and I'd been taking clients doing things behind the scenes, but I hadn't been like, here's my website and here's like how far I'm going. And it was like, I knew there's a missing piece. And for me, it was also the hypnosis. And so because you're getting this physical release, you're unlocking, you're like, okay, I reset. But it's like now my phone, if you will, is cleared. There are no apps on it, and it is there's nothing. So what do I do next? And then I had also been doing hypnosis and hypnotherapy for a couple of years at that point. And it was like, that's the missing link. And so I got certified, and now my practice and like what I do with folks is kind of a combination of the breath work, the hypnosis. And then there's one other thing that I'm super passionate about, which is actually including sound. So there's a ton of science and amazing, which we've talked a little bit about. It's called brainwave entrainment. And you're using, a lot of people are more familiar with binaural beats or binaural tones.
Yeah.
I've been a huge nerd. I was like in college, that was like my jam. Like that's how I studied. But there's now all the science catching up with it, like of how to use sound, breath, and like the subconscious work to trigger certain brainwave states, you know, to get the desired result. And so I know that's a mouthful, but one simple example is like when you use there's certain frequencies and certain sounds that can help trigger the alpha brainwave state. And the alpha brainwave state is flow state. So that's something like, again, a busy entrepreneur, anyone, mom, like whatever it is, it's like getting into flow state is like you're turning off the noise, you're dialed in, and what you get done in like, you know, an hour could be like, you know, what you used to be able to do in 8 hours. It's just that deep work that like you're totally dialed in state. And having this combination of these three things has been like absolutely life-changing for me. And it's something I'm so passionate about. I know it sounds like weird to talk about, but it's like so many people are finding out about these tools. And oftentimes a lot of it is stuff that you can do on your own. And similar to Christina, I am so passionate about sharing this information and also creating community around it and helping people just find relief and feeling better. Because I know for myself that like when I started to operate at this different frequency, this different mind space, you know, this physical level, it was like everything in my life got better. My relationship with my parents, my presence, being around them with a regulated nervous system made everything around me better. Even though everyone else is chaotic and losing their shit and like so dysfunctional, I'm just, because I'm taking care of myself, I could improve just by being there. And so that's why I'm super passionate about. That's why I'm here. And I'm so excited that we have all of our unique journeys to hopefully create a space where we can talk about, honestly, like breathwork, mindset, how we can get a six-pack and look hot. And then also I'm not paying taxes. So please.
Win all across the board. That's truly holistic.
Yes. I do think Michelle is going to be the most popular one, but it's okay.
Well, and I think in closing, what we should do is maybe give our listeners each a little bit of something that they can take away. So I can start. I'll do like a little hypnosis thing where we can all get together and see how cool the mind is and how it works.
Yeah.
And maybe you can do a little breath work and you can give us a little tip on how to avoid taxes and give us a little like metabolic hack real quick for us. So for me, let's start with, and if you're listening and you're driving, don't do this, just bear with me here. If you take a deep breath in and a deep breath out and close your eyes. And just imagine that you have a lemon in front of you. Really just have that lemon, see it, visualize it, imagine it. Now, wherever the lemon is, you can grab the lemon and you can touch it, you can smell it, you can feel it. Really take it in and visualize and smell, taste, hear, whatever comes to you. And from there, take that lemon in your hand if you don't have it already and figure out a way to cut the lemon in half, whatever will work for you. I don't know what might work for you. What usually works for me is taking a cutting board and a knife and cutting that lemon in half. And smell that lemon. And now put it up to your lips and really taste that lemon and feel that. And then whenever you're ready, you can come back to me here and now. Tell me what that did to your mouth and your mind.
It was immersive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you said split it was already split, which I love in the quantum level. It's like, boom, it's already done. But that's a hypnotic state right there.
That's your mind.
My mouth was watering.
Your mouth's watering. It's amazing what your mind will do, and it's not even there. So think of that when you're worrying next time.
Yeah.
Take a step back and realize that worry probably isn't here. And do a check. Do a reality check.
Wow.
make lemonade.
Yes.
I was just amazed that I could envision that, just by you telling me to.
It's a muscle, right?
It's a muscle. It's so
The
powerful.
more you work it, the stronger it gets.
It's our most powerful muscle.
Good.
Awesome. Okay, everyone's looking at me, so I guess
Yeah,
I'm
give it a
next.
go. You're next.
Awesome. Well,
Hypnotist to hypnotist.
yes. Okay, so as far as breath work goes, I would just love to share what circular breathing is. So you can use this anywhere you're at. I guess maybe don't do it when you're driving as like a liability check there. But just take a moment to, get situated. Yeah, definitely don't do it while you're driving because it's easier if you close your eyes. Closing your eyes and then put your hands on your stomach. And as you do an inhale, we'll do it with our mouth. So an inhale through the mouth. Notice your stomach expand. And then exhale through the mouth as your stomach kind of compresses down. So this is a different pattern than normal. It's called diaphragmatic breathing. You can just do that 5 times. So in through the mouth as your stomach expands. Slowly exhaling. And keep going. Do that 2 more times. Again, noticing on the inhale how your stomach expands. And on the exhale, release. That is just a super simple reset you can do. Even the energy in this room was like, shh, okay, we're better.
Yeah.
Why does it make me lightheaded?
Because you are oxygenating your bloodstream. So that is why, thank you for reminding me. Everyone's body reacts differently. So listen to your body. This is super self-guided. Go as slow as you need to. And definitely don't do this while you're driving. That's a very good point.
I love it.
Yes.
It did it relaxes you a lot.
Yes.
So
To your point, calmer minds always prevail. Right. So in the midst of stress or any type of chaos, taking these moments to like visualize the lemon or take a breath. Yeah. I mean, that took a minute.
It's just wild. We forget to breathe.
The foundation. There's
That's it.
I think it was KRS-One who's got a lot of good philosophy, and one of the old school rappers, he talked about like when you can't breathe, what's the first thing that goes? Not your heart, not your brain. It's your consciousness.
Oh, I love that. I saw that
Right?
on Instagram reel the other day.
So you can be revived after, not getting enough air, right? But it's like, so what is breath? It is consciousness.
Life.
Yeah. So you want to become more aware, tune in with your breath.
Love it. Amazing.
For me, the tidbit, to practice the foundation, the most important thing, I think, before nutrition, when it comes to metabolics, the biggest thing is understanding the importance of light. And that this is, people want to hear food. I'll give you a tidbit on food, but the most important thing is getting sunlight, direct sunlight. When we work, 99% of us are working inside, especially as entrepreneurs and business owners, that guerrilla warfare style where you're just constantly putting out fires and have to take care of everything and always on the screen, that ends up causing a long-term drainage and increased anxiety and all the physical effects that people don't want, drained energy. That is the most important thing. If you can take time in the morning to get direct sunlight and then carry that throughout the day, at least 3 times a day, systematically, and make time for yourself, that's constantly what I'm making a point of with clients and everybody, is make time for yourself.
what would you say with the sunlight? Like if I wake up in the morning, is that the first thing I do? I go outside if I can?
Yes. Okay. Or, I crack my window open and I'll have a glass of water.
Okay.
Like, that's the first thing I do first thing in the morning.
And does that help your Your
circadian rhythm. So
Okay.
circadian rhythm is 24 hours a day, right? It's not just going to bed and waking up, but there's a whole sequence of events that happen genetically, hormonally. First thing in the morning, when you get that sunlight, if it's the phone first thing in the morning, your body thinks it's noon, right? So it's picking up and going, okay, you're noon. What's going on? You just woke up and it's noon. So that skips a cascade of hormones, and then that throws off your sleep cycle, and then sleep cycle being thrown off, that carries into after effects that we all know and have experienced. So, your blood sugar management goes down, your cortisol raises, you're more reactive, you have less time to yourself, less of a calm mind and body. But getting that sunlight first thing in the morning, and then I would say secondary to that is putting the right type of food in your mouth and looking at food as truly a drug. Everybody, coffee, right? We drink coffee for a purpose and reason, not just for the taste, right?
I only drink it for one reason, and it's not the taste.
Exactly. Like my son's like, so what are you having right there? And he's counting my cups and everything. He's put me in check. But food is truly a drug, and it can be used for good things. It can be used for detrimental things. And a lot of times it's used for stress, right? If you're stressed, you're not going to go for a steak and broccoli.
Chocolate.
Exactly. You're going to go for the sweets. Yeah. So
Baby wants
to answer your question really quick with the cravings and everything, it could be a combination of things, being the circadian rhythms off, but that could throw off the cortisol, which to suppress the cortisol, you need to have sugar to be able to drop that down. So it's this mechanism that we use on a daily basis unconsciously.
Yeah.
But the first thing you have, if you're waking up like me, 4:00 in the morning, I can't get sunlight right away. So what I focus on is protein. That's the first thing.
Interesting.
Primarily animal protein because of the complete amino acid profile. People look at protein as just grams, like 30 grams of protein. But what you got to look at is the micronutrients that make up that protein, which ultimately shape your neurochemistry. So if you're having plant protein, which I'm not against, but if you're having plant protein first thing in the morning, or you're having bread, combination of those things, then what you're not doing is stimulating the yang neurotransmitters, those fire hormones and neurotransmitters like dopamine, acetylcholine. This helps you with drive and focus. Whereas carbs, it's serotonin based. So they're more yin in recovery, right? So you're starting off very low. And it also it messes with the cascade of blood sugar. So if you have something sugary in the morning, your body responds to the rest of the meals like that as well. So
interesting.
I would love for us to do a whole podcast on this, on how moms and parents can help their kids with this.
Tremendous.
Because this is a huge problem.
Big time.
Going into school where we feed them cereal.
Yeah. And then their school lunches are terrible too. They're loaded with all sorts of stuff. Yeah. It's not nutritionally dense. So food is a drug. And so look, light is a drug as well. We're absorbing nutrients through these types of waves, right? And you'll get into sound therapy. It's the same exact thing. It's like what we surround ourselves with. And one thing that people don't pay attention to enough is the screen time. And
so mine is like mortified. Do you guys get the little notification of like,
oh yeah.
I get it.
How many hours are you on?
Girl, it's so bad. I cannot tell you. I was like, this is why I do so much breath work.
Yeah.
Because my job just like kind of demands it. And so, but you can make other schedules around that. But it is like an incredible reminder of just like, it quickly goes away. Like there's some weeks it'll be like 5 hours, and there's some weeks it'll be like 8.5 hours. Like when it's like, I wasn't even on my phone, but it was just like up and like, and I was like switching between things, and I'm like, how did this happen? It's like ridiculous.
It's an essential piece to our day and age, right? So there's ways that we got to mitigate it, but the big thing that if you're an outlier, somebody stands out, is used to thinking outside the box and doing things differently, you have to look at it holistically and know that you will be an outlier. Health is a very rebellious act. And when you start to do things differently, or say, hey, instead of having the meeting in here, we're going to go outside for a walk.
Yes.
Or I'm going to do a talk and go for a walk, right? Like you're going to stand out. I'm the weirdo.
Seems so weird, but people don't do that.
But so another thing too is definitions, right? So how we define things is very important. And the term weird, or the word weird, the etymology, the origin of the word actually stands for maker of one's fate. So we get demonized for being weird, right?
I also always think weird is a compliment. People are like, you're weird as hell.
And I'm like, thank you. It's an indicator you're doing things right. Yes.
I'm like, wait, is that bad?
Yeah, totally go for that.
I've already programmed myself to think it's a good thing.
We have to help our children with that. I'll tell you,
Embrace
because
it.
they don't want to. They don't want to be weird.
They don't want to be made fun of. They don't want to they don't want to be an outlier. And oftentimes in those situations at school, it's probably not even safe. Mm-hmm. That's in there in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, sunlight first thing in the morning. Secondary to that is protein intake. Make sure you get some animal protein, complete protein.
What about an egg?
Egg is probably the most perfect protein that you can get. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
What are a couple examples?
So it could be anything. If it walks, swim, flies, or runs, it's good to go. Okay. Or if it has eyes or it had eyes, you can have it.
That's a little dark.
Yeah, I know. But it makes it very simple and clean. Yes, exactly.
Plant protein.
Yeah. If it's so,
rid of your lentils and beans.
But like another way to put it, I guess a more digestible way to put it is whatever you have for dinner, you can have for breakfast. Right. So people kind of mix and match. And I love a ribeye first thing in the morning. Like that's one of my favorite things. But
I mean, that tracks for your physique.
We have to really talk about this too in another episode is about red meat. Because we've all been told like red meat's so bad for you, all this stuff, but I crave red meat. Yeah. So to me, it's like I listen to my body and when I want a steak, I'm going to go have a steak. And geez, there's so much other stuff I want to talk to you about with like eating out and how bad it is for you, how you cannot find anything on the menu.
It depends on our region, like so where we live in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I think there's an awakening happening with that, but there are a lot of in different places I've lived. It's just like it's so dependent on like what the mindset is around.
It's true.
Nutrition. Like when I was living in Seattle, most people move there to be outdoors and like they all like it's more common than not for folks there to be like performance based and like healthy. I had never been around like a large population that was like health and what is their number one priority. So there were like tons more because of the demand, because everyone wants to go hiking on the mountains and bike riding and all these things. The demand was met by like restaurants that were healthier.
Yeah.
So it's like in the Midwest, not to say that I think there's tons of like super healthy people and like wellness community, but
the majority of our restaurants here are hard to go and
not caught into it yet.
Yeah. So
yeah, the health consciousness is definitely, we're secondary here as versus like coastal, it's more primary. And it's a market. So if the demand calls for it or the market calls for it, then the opportunities start to show up.
Yeah. That's nice. So it can change.
Okay, how do I not pay taxes?
Okay.
Let's
get yourself in trouble.
Right. I think just to connect everything, I think it's more about us all thinking about how we can invest in ourselves. So through nutrition, what are you ingesting? So you can feel better and deal with stress. Like let's say if you have a business. So when you have a business, not thinking in terms of, he said it the other day, like spending is maybe not the best word to use, circulate, invest. And business owners can be thinking of how do they invest in their business and get those tax deductions.
Yes. And let me just clarify that because for me, that's like a really important part of this discussion.
Yeah.
I believe that we're taught by our CPAs as soon as you start making money that you need to spend the money, you need to have expenses, you need to have your, whatever high level car, you have to have lease a car, you shouldn't buy a car, all these things to help you reduce your tax liability. But what you're saying is instead of doing those, circulate the money in your business to be impactful and think about what you're investing in. Don't just go spend the money.
You can be strategic about how you do it. Because I think in terms of spending the money, even if they say go get the property, get the car, you still have to sit with how do I handle having that? Because it still goes back to lack. Are you going to feel lack by doing those things? Then you don't do that.
Yes.
But these are ways to get tax deductions, and you got to see it as a strategy. And it's not the end of the world if you got to sell that house or you got to get rid of that car. You're in a mode of investing in yourself, investing in the business. And these are just ways. And if you want the tax deductions, that's a good way. but you have to also be able to grow that business. So why you invest in the knowledge? You need to grow the business, invest in a marketing, invest in a podcast, invest in these things to grow your business and have that energy about you, and then believe in yourself and get the right nutrition so that you can keep going and have that mindset. Because if you don't have all these things, then you can seriously derail. And then when you have all these things, then you can have an estate plan, and you don't have to do the will as your estate plan. You can do the trust, and you can think of all those methods that are available to high net worth individuals. And you can be talking seriously to financial advisors. You can be talking seriously to enrolled agent, a CPA, and an attorney about how to handle this amount of money and what should I do with it and how to best pass it on to my loved ones.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll say this, one thing that was awesome about Michelle is we've been working with each other for about 7 months now, and you found a way to actually integrate the coaching and the nutrition, like our training, in as a part of your business.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's associated
Yeah.
with her performance in business.
Right. So I'm saying that can be a tax deduction. So you can think of how you can do these things because it's going to improve my business, going to improve my ability to work. Like you talk about hypnosis, changing the mindset, health, and the ability to have the energy to do the work that you do or deal with the stresses that your work involves. It has a lot to do with health and strength training and mindset and all of the stuff that he can provide a person. So
that is so powerful. It's a reason why I had to sell my business. I didn't take care of myself.
I was just going to say, like everything you guys talked about, the burnout is as physical as it is mental and subconscious and everything else.
Spiritual.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if I took the time to realize that, the outcome would have been different. I'm happy I'm here today. I'm happy I'm doing the things I'm doing. This is where I'm meant to be. Having this knowledge will help a lot of people.
Very much so.
And that's the thing, like all of our pasts, we go through the stressors and we realize they were stressors, and then we can correct and maybe change the path or improve the path. So all our paths are great because we got to this place of realizing we need a little improvement of how to deal with these stressors we have in our life. And maybe some of the ways is our mindset and nutrition and, just our belief system and some things we can't control of how we grew up and what we started to believe at a young age.
Yes.
So it's all amazing to like integrate it and then apply knowledge and seek it and then go forward and be better.
Absolutely.
But-
I think the final closing thought would just be that the reason we're here, all from very different backgrounds, is because we all have experienced that mindset of kind of black and white thinking where it's like, I can have the super successful, intense, traditional, career as an attorney, but then I also can't have the health, social, spiritual, like it's like the sacrificial thing. Whereas in reality, there is a new way to be where it's, this and like there is this level of integration where you can prioritize all these different things and create a synergy to create, again, this like more holistic, sustainable route to success. And I think that's kind of the point of not only that, but also getting rid of whatever has been in the way for you so that your true self and essence can kind of come to surface as well.
Exactly. And for those of us who always hear like, oh, you should have a work-life balance. I always say no, that there's no such thing as a work-life balance. It should be a balance that you have within you to know when to step back and take that time and regenerate or whatever. And nobody can tell you, no company, no boss, no leader, no spouse, no partner can tell you when it's time to have that balance. You have to find it. And that's what we're here to help people understand.
Awesome.
Remember that.
No, remember you.
Remember you.
Okay, wait, hold on. I want to redo the intro really quick
Okay.
All right.
because they're kind of a little more relaxed. Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. This is our first episode of Remember You, a podcast where we're talking about living a holistic life with our physical health, our mental health, our financial health, and creating a synergy within these different pillars to create a really sustainable path to success, and also hopefully sharing that with your family and other folks that are in your life as well.